Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is taking a bunch of heat for saying that COVID was targeted to go after people who are Caucasian and Black and is protective against Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Now, I've scoured the medical literature and I really could find not much evidence of this whatsoever. But also, these comments are feeding into an anti-Semitic conspiracy. So let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Dr. David. So many people know that a person's ancestral ties, their genetics, their ethnic background can dictate how they do from a health perspective for certain medical conditions. And also, the reality of these things has also led to a historically weaponizing to form prejudicial beliefs and policies. So what am I talking about there? Okay, let me give you some examples of how genetics dictates illness. Okay, now it is well known that, for instance, Ashkenazi Jews are more likely to have Tay-Sachs disease and Gaucher's disease and other types of genetic metabolic conditions. Okay, in fact, those with sickle cell trait, who are most commonly people from African descent, is actually protective against malaria. Okay, and we know that from an ABO blood type, there's a lot of information now that shows that blood type A may be associated with increased severity of illness with COVID virus, and that blood type O seems to be protective. So this does happen in reality. There is medical research that shows that these things can happen. Okay, now let's talk more about what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. actually said. So I'm going to quote this. COVID-19. There is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasian and Black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. We don't know whether it was deliberately targeted or not, but there are papers out there that show the racial or ethnic differential and impact. Okay. Now, as I said, I couldn't find any information that specifically says that any of this, but also I couldn't really find anything that implies that Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people have a common genetic protection against the virus. And of course, if you know of any, please share it with me. I'm always willing to learn, but I couldn't find it. Okay, now let's talk for a second about what Ashkenazi Jews are in the first place. Okay, so I am an Ashkenazi Jew. Okay, Ashkenazi Jews mostly originate from Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, more than 90% of Jewish people in America are Ashkenazi. Okay, now just kind of as this like a setting the tone in the first place, when most Jewish people hear ethnic targeting, we're going to think about ethnic cleansing, things like the Holocaust, and of course, there's been ethnic cleansing that has been appalling for many other people as well. But as you can imagine, you know, as a Jewish person myself, how that could be pretty disturbing. Okay, now, because if he's talking now, since he's talking about Jewish people being protected, not worse off, granted, okay, so he's not saying it's attacking, but it is kind of a statement that will raise eyebrows because where are you going with that? Okay, where is he going? Now, if 90% of American Jews are from Europe, okay, and they're white, that means that most of us are Caucasian. Okay, and that's of course the definition is white-skinned people from Europe. Okay, so besides everything else, his comments contradict himself if he's saying Ashkenazi Jews are protected, but Caucasians are not for the virus. So that alone doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, but not just that. Let's now talk about the science and where some of these genetic conversations can come, because it is understood that most conspiracy theories do start with a grain of truth. Okay, so he did not provide any medical justification for his claims, and I tried to look that up into past things, and I couldn't find everything. Now, granted, I may have missed some old speeches because everything that I can search now were related to his comments today, but I tried to look back. I couldn't find it. Okay, but let's talk about this now, because most of us have heard about the ACE2 receptor. Okay, and the ACE2 receptor is what the spike protein of coronavirus sticks to, and it's mostly found in the respiratory system, some in the GI tract as well, some in our glands, etc. Okay, so this ACE2 receptor is therefore needed for the virus to enter human cells. Okay. Now, there is a variant in the ACE2 receptor called K26R, and it is more frequently found in Ashkenazi Jewish people. And this variation does it does decrease the attraction of the virus for the ACE2 receptor. Okay, so there could be some protection there. So again, there may be some grain of truth to what he's saying, but, a big but here, because there's another gene that is called TMPRSS2. Okay, and this gene seems to have the opposite effect. Okay, and the gene codes for a protein that is also found on the lining of the respiratory tract and GI tract, and it's involved in viral entry into the cells by activating the spike protein. So the spike protein needs to be activated before it can get through. Okay, now research suggests that for this particular gene, TMPRSS2, there is a variant called RS1232967, and that actually does protect people. It does seem to not turn on the spike protein in that similar manner, but relative to Ashkenazi Jews, the research that I found, and all of this is, you can see in the show notes below in the description where I've linked to these things, they show that Ashkenazi Jews are the least likely ethnic group to carry this variant. So at most, this may be a mixed bag, okay? Because these two genes that Ashkenazi Jewish people may more likely harbor, they counteract each other, right? So now again, if anybody is aware of any other studies that do suggest that Ashkenazi Jews are more protected against COVID, again, please share them with me. I do want to learn. Okay, so now, what do we make of all of this? Okay, now when he's saying we don't know if it was deliberately targeted or not, that implies that there could be some engineering of it, and that implies for a specific reason, though. Okay, and I know people have talked about gain of function and things like that. Was it released accidentally? Was it released on purpose? Were they playing around with gain of function? But obviously, that's different in terms of, can a virus be made stronger and more dangerous versus it's there to target specifically a particular group or protect a particular group. Okay, so now let's take this one step further. Okay, now if, as hypothesized, that researchers created a virus targeting to protect Jewish people, or Chinese people for that matter, and to stop them from getting sick, most people would be hearing that claim, and they would maybe even assume that those researchers, or since we do know a lot of people in research are Jewish as well as Chinese, that maybe those populations, those ethnicities, created this to protect their own. Right? Now, again, same thing could said. So that is right there. That's how his comments became so dangerous. Okay, because it really can feed into anti-Semitic and anti-Chinese conspiracies theories, and as to why so many people in the Jewish as well as the Asian populations are so bothered by this. Okay, so that's the information that we have. Again, maybe this was an inartful way of saying it. And I really wish that he would have gone much more into the science that he was trying to, if he was trying to make a point. But just to throw this stuff out there on video where it got out to everybody, that just is fuel to the fire of people who are anti-Semitic or anti-Asian. Have a nice day.